Today, she is a strong advocate of breast implant illness, education, and recovery. The amazing Dr. Kayte Susse.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to spread the word.
Yes, I think it's so important. It's a little, I feel like there's still a little like voodoo topic about it.
Yes.
But as I was just telling you before we started filming, I feel like there's more and more women that I personally know that are having these mysterious illnesses, and I'm going, well, you know, is it the breast plants? Is it, or at least rule that out if you don't have them.
Or know to look for that, because a lot of doctors don't even think about it.
Right.
I know in my personal journey, I was suffering. I had a lot of symptoms. I went to a lot of different doctors, and you know, when your labs come back normal and they don't really know what the next thing is, it's easy to minimize your symptoms and say maybe it's in your head, or maybe you have anxiety, or maybe you have fibromyalgia. So.
That's a great. That's the common one that they usually throw at you because there's no really diagnosis.
Right. However, there is a huge correlation between silicone ruptures, like silent ruptures that people don't know about, and fibromyalgia diagnoses. But for the most part, we don't really know what causes fibromyalgia. There's a lot of speculation, but it's kind of like an umbrella thing that gives you a prescription.
Right. And you personally, like so you were an athlete, right?
Yes.
So you could tell. I mean, women know their bodies. People know their bodies. You know when something is not right. And that's what happened, right?
Yeah, so I was like a high school and college All-American wrestler, and I've always been...
Which I love that, by the way. That's so cool.
Thanks. So I've always been very athletic. I never really stopped working out, and after I got implants, I started having a ton of pain. That was my first warning sign.
When you say pain, was it like systemic, or was it in the boob area? Or
it was systemic, and I had been working out with a trainer pretty hard. I was 27, and I just started to feel that, you know, that muscle soreness after you have a hard workout, but there was an extra layer to it, and it started to keep me up at night to the point where I was like thinking I needed to take an ibuprofen. It was so strong, and I've never had that with post-workout pain. I've felt post-workout pain, but not to that point where there's just something added. So I started thinking, like, what's going on? I tailored back my workouts, and then the pain was still there. And then
there's nothing more scary than like your body doing something that you don't know how to control. Like nothing's working.
Right. So, you know, it was a process of figuring things out, of going to different doctors, of thinking maybe I had Lyme disease, getting treated for Lyme disease, even though I didn't have confirmatory Lyme markers. It was just kind of a symptom thing, like, oh, it seems like, which, not to diminish Lyme disease, it's very serious, but I think sometimes diagnoses become trendy, and it becomes easy to say, like, you know, maybe it's this or that.
Especially if a lot of the symptoms match, because like other than muscle soreness, what were some other symptoms you were having?
So at that time, and I think it's interesting to mention this because years ago, there was a big study that they did when we first started thinking about silicone and immune system reactivity and autoimmune disease, which is something that we know about. So doctors don't really tell you when you go for consults, but that's like on the research. Like there's tons of evidence linking. It's on the FDA fact sheet for silicone implants that it can cause autoimmune disease, that it can cause anti-nuclear antibodies in 1 in 300 women within 3 years of implanting.
1 in 300?
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes. So when this research was starting to emerge and there was starting to become a correlation, they did a big study where they found that women, a bunch of men proposed that after women got implants, their lifestyles changed such that the phone was ringing.
Oh, this
they're
is
going out,
interesting.
they're partying more, they have new partners, they're drinking, they're engaging in behaviors that, well, maybe that's what's causing their autoimmune disease, right? So I like to use myself as an example because before medical school, I had a very different lifestyle. I was an avid like go-outer, partier in LA. I was doing a lot of things. I was flying back and forth. And yeah, so I would say after I got implants, my lifestyle changed dramatically in the opposite direction. You know, everything becomes a lot smaller because you can't stay up after 9 o'clock and you have to sleep, you know, 9 or 10 hours, and you can't drink alcohol, you can't tolerate it. And when you do, you have neurological symptoms that are scary.
So you neurological systems like forgetfulness or fogginess?
Yeah, like, you know, you start losing things. I set my phone into a cup of water absentmindedly, which is a weird thing I've never done something like that before. So you know when that happens. Or like you go into a store and you forget why you're there. And then just being a woman starting to get a little older, people tell you crazy things, like maybe you're getting older, maybe it's aging. So
yeah. And I think it's so interesting too, because as you said, like normal markers,
Right.
like there's a normal marker. Like if I'm
Yes.
not feeling well, I mean, I went undiagnosed for years with rheumatoid arthritis because they would do, normal testing, normal markers, whatever that meant. But I knew something was wrong with me.
Right.
And
right.
and I think that that's so important for women that are listening right now that maybe are going through something and that they do have breast implants, is to listen. It's not normal to feel sore in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s after a workout.
Right.
If you know,
or
your
without
body,
working out, or in general, or for different triggers, like you start going through stress, and people who have fibromyalgia will tell you this, like random things can set it off. It could be something you ate, or it could be you're moving and you're feeling overwhelmed, and then all of a sudden you're aching everywhere, or you get in a fight with someone, you start aching.
Yes.
Emotional triggers. So the confusing thing for me, like on my journey through school, was that I don't have autoimmunity. I don't have any high inflammatory markers, C-reactive protein. All of that was normal. So I thought about silicone and the immune system, but for me that didn't fit. But I didn't know that silicone implants have this slew of heavy metals, that they have, mercury and lead and arsenic and platinum and aluminum and tons of neurotoxic chemicals that aren't heavy metals. So when I found that out, it was like a light bulb went off. I've been doing a lot of genetic research and epigenetic investigation.
This is while you still had the implants.
While I still had the implants. Yeah. So I found out that there's other mutations in your genes which can cause you to have a huge problem detoxing those heavy metals, and that alone could be the source of a lot of symptoms.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think what you had said too, because there is a correlation with autoimmune. So certain people are predisposed.
Yes.
And then certain life triggers or certain
like
things
silicone.
Like silicone can actually trigger an autoimmune.
To turn it on, right.
To turn it on.
Right. So for all of the women who have autoimmune disease who explant their silicone, that's the first step, but it's not the only thing. There's and from reversing your own RA that there's a lot of other factors that have to go into that recovery.
Yes. And it's a constant. I mean, with rheumatoid arthritis, I say I'm thriving with rheumatoid arthritis. There's no cure,
right?
But it's a constant roller coaster that I'm willing to ride for the rest of my life. But so what was the process for you eventually finding the doctor, first of all? Because I mean, that's a whole process too of removing.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I initially contacted the surgeon who implanted me, who is someone I trust, and I feel he's a really competent doctor. Like, he's very good. But when I talked to him, they don't understand the magnitude of importance of removing the implant with the scar tissue capsule completely around it, like not disrupting that environment, because otherwise, you don't know if you have a rupture. Sometimes silicone will spill. It can go and metastasize into your lymph nodes, and then you can never get it out. So you need to go to a surgeon who not only understands the importance of doing the correct removal procedure, but is also practiced at it. Because then I talked to other doctors who were like, sure, we can do it, no problem. But they can't show me any examples of successful times that they've done it, or they can show me one or two. Yeah. And when this is your life, I mean, I know women who have explanted incorrectly and they're still sick. They still have a lot of health problems.
And not to mention, but I think it is important because I could hear the questions that women would be asking. A lot of women get breast implants to begin with for vanity purposes. So now you're sick and now you have to remove them. So not on of course for health reasons, but you also don't want to look worse than you did to begin with.
Right, exactly.
So there's a lot of
hesitation
and spiritual healing too, I think, forgiving, and I'm sure it's a process.
And that's why working with multiple people with different specialties can be helpful, I think. But you're right. You're totally right. And a lot of the good surgeons, they do lifts and they can do fat transfer. There's healthy ways, using stem cells, using fat transfer to sort of rejuvenate. And then part of what I do with patients now is a whole regenerative program. So we're, if they're having metal toxicity issues, we're chelating the heavy metals or to their tolerance. If they're an autoimmune patient, probably not chelate. And then doing,
what is that?
Where you use certain materials that help bind to the metals and eliminate them.
Oh, yeah. And through IV or through pills?
You can do IV, or there's prescription ways. There's also natural ways, but it's very bio-individual, depending on the person. And then after you've cleaned house, you can start the rejuvenation process. And the cool part about that, about the bad thing about metals is that they have a really bad effect on your mitochondria, which is why women get a lot of advanced aging.
And can you say what mitochondria is?
Yeah, the mitochondria, it's the powerhouse of the cell, but it's also, it's where your energy cycles happen. So when that process is a little disrupted, you're having a lot less energy, because these are all of the cells in your whole body, right? Every breath you take, every move you make.
Yeah, every breath you take. Yes.
Right, you're making ATP, and you're going through this Krebs cycle, and you're trying.
ATP.
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss, you gotta help us out here. What's
Yeah.
ATP?
But the thing about the mitochondria, which you might hear, like, just it's very common to talk about nowadays, is aging. So
Yes.
so oxidative stress, free radicals, that's all something that implants cause and prevent the elimination of free radicals. That's, you have extra aging, and then when you remove them in detox, you have to regenerate that process, which can give you like a very strong anti-aging
So
result.
it sounds like something to do anyways, even if you
Yes.
don't have the breast implants.
Yes.
But I think what's so important too is, like what I read in your bio, is there's multiple ways, not just, like I have a personal friend who I know is dealing with a silicone leak right now, and
Okay.
she is sick. She knows it's leaking.
Right.
What if you are feeling like you're okay? Like, what are other symptoms, or not symptoms, what are other ways that the breast implants can cause harm?
So we've talked a lot about silicone today, but many women who have saline implants have a slew of problems too. It's a little different mechanism for saline, because we've seen old saline implants removed filled with mold, and that mold,
Oh my gosh, how scary.
and yes, it's entrapped within the implant, but there's also valves that can leak. And
yeah, but it's like, you think about it, like I don't even drink plastic water
Right.
unless I have
Yeah.
to. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And
So
you think
it's
about what the old
interesting.
saline implants are. The shell is not the older ones. I believe the shell is made of something similar to plastic.
Wow.
I would really love to direct like anyone listening to a Facebook group that's called Healing Breast Implant Illness by Nicole. She has, the last I checked, which was a couple months ago, she had about 40,000 members
Wow.
and it's a great support group for women in all stages of the process. And even women who are thinking about implants go in the group, and she has a ton of resources. They have lists of doctors that they feel are up and up about the topic.
I think that's great. I mean, I think what it reminds me of most is, I'm a mom, and the whole vaccination process, and there was so much. I felt so overwhelmed. My instinct was like, don't do vaccines, but then you have these fears, so I educated myself, and I went to
Yes.
these vaccine workshops that were
Yes.
pro-choice, and they give you both sides of the story, so you can make a decision what you feel is right.
Right.
And I think that that's so empowering for women. Like, if they feel like that it's something that they want to do, at least educate yourself at this point. And I love that you're sharing your story. And more than that, I'm so inspired that there's one thing to say when you're able to share something that you've experienced, but you became a doctor because of it. Like,
Yes.
that's so gangster.
It's true. And I started studying functional medicine and preventative medicine because of my mysterious health symptoms. Like, and no one really being able to tell me. And I'm not talking about just regular medical doctors. Like, I've seen every type of alternative medicine doctor. Nobody ever said, even on their intake form, do you have breast implants? Which is a huge thing,
Wow.
doctors. Like, write that on your form, ask them.
Wow,
Because
that's so interesting.
yeah, and you look at all these different types of health problems, like mast cell syndrome, where people are reacting, they get red from a lot of foods they eat, or they have weird allergy responses. Like, all of the mast cells are right here. So you have these implants right next to the vagus nerve, right next to your heart, your lungs. So people can have different symptoms for different reasons. There's a doctor, Arthur Bauer, who's a rheumatologist for 35 years. He's been studying silicone, and he told me there's 20 different ways implants can make different women sick.
Can you tell us a couple
Some of the other ways?
Yeah.
To go into like the pathophysiology, I know in my case, like, I have a genetic mutation on an enzyme called SOD2, superoxygen dismutase. So to save you like the whole medical lecture, basically this enzyme is in the mitochondria, and it removes free radicals. So in a bad epigenetic situation where my environment, and keep in mind, like, I eat super clean, I'm gluten,
Yes.
dairy free, soy-free, very minimal chemical toxins exposure, and I'm feeling awful still, right, before I explanted. So, you know, why? Well, the reason why is because the internal environment in my body was toxic. So it was turning on my bad gene mutations. That enzyme, which I just mentioned, was not able to do its job. So there's less of that enzyme, which means there's an accumulation of free radicals. So to take you downstream a little from there, when you have too much free radicals, your cells start dying more. So you have more cell death, which means less insulin receptors to uptake glucose, which means higher blood sugar. You know,
it wasn't matter if you were not eating soy. It was like your body was fighting itself.
Right. And like I had doctors like, you know, you're pre-diabetic. I was actually pre-diabetic on labs. Why am I pre-diabetic? Like I'm healthy, I'm young, like I don't fit even the ethnic demographic to say maybe there's a predisposition. You know, I was doing high intensity exercise, trying to resensitize the insulin receptors, and no, nothing worked. And 3 months after I took my implants out, my A1C went from 5.7 to 5.2. So for people who know what that means, that's huge.
So how long after your surgery? Because I'm sure that there was some recovery time.
I'm still recovering.
Still recovering.
Yeah.
So, but when did you start feeling better?
I felt better immediately after I took them out the very next day, but it wasn't like a straight shoot up. You know, there's been a lot of ups and downs. There were days where I had this the crazy pain returned. I went to the sauna and then I felt better after 30 minutes. I took some glutathione and then I went to the sauna and I felt better immediately.
So you're doing a lot of detox, lymphatic drainage probably, right?
Yes, hyperbaric chamber.
Hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah, fasting.
You're doing all the fun stuff. I love all that stuff.
Yeah, well, you have to like do it. I'm telling people to do it. Recently we tried an NAD drip.
I've heard of this.
Yeah,
you did it?
Yes, I did it for 8 hours.
Did it hurt?
Oh no.
Because I thought somebody said something about there was some intense feeling.
It makes you feel very emotional.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's almost like being high.
So will you tell people what this is? Because this is new forefront. This is like a lot of how do I want to say it? Like athletes and stuff in the health industry are starting to do this.
Well, we started using NAD IV for addicts who are trying to get off really hard drugs like heroin because it upregulates your serotonin, dopamine, and it has this effect on the brain to kind of rewire it, which is huge.
Wow.
However, NAD is one of the Krebs cycle substrates or cofactors, sorry. So it gives a great boost for people who have fatigue. So it's also used in chronic fatigue syndrome, anti-aging. I woke up the next day, I was like, wow, I look 5 years younger. It wears off, but.
So you have to go slow. It's 8 hours.
Yes,
IV
you have to go very slow. Yeah,
so your body can.
You don't know how people are going to react. Yeah. So it can be a little bit of a roller
roller
coaster.
It's not FDA approved or anything.
Well, it's just a vitamin. I mean, yes.
Well, not like if the FDA, even if it is approved by the FDA, I'm just saying, I don't think it's as
I can't speak on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like it's like this secret thing that everyone's doing right now.
It's basically like vitamin B3. I mean, it's nicotinamide riboside, similar.
Okay, got it.
NAD, yeah.
I'm gonna do that.
That's just one thing, though. That's just one thing.
Yeah.
That's just one thing. There's so many other ways you can, and we're looking into doing a stem cell treatment protocol after you've cleaned all the metals and you've cleaned the liver and. You want to rejuvenate with stem cells that can go in and they're smart and they can fix the damage that's been done because a lot of damage has been done. You have these things in your body for years.
Yes.
Like I'm talking really fast.
No,
I get so excited about this topic.
I love that you get so excited and it's so inspiring. And I'm just sitting here watching you going, it's so cool that you took this horrible experience in your life and you have completely turned it around. You've become a doctor. And now I really think that this is what you're going to do, and you're going to help so many people.
Well,
and I'm so
we need to intervene, right? Yeah, I don't think they're going to be doing them in like 5-10 years. I think it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
With what we're learning.
If you're saying like they can do this fat transfer and stuff, that's so
cool. To put implants in, exactly.
Yeah.
We don't need to do them.
Yeah, they're coming up.
But they're still doing like 500,000 a year. They're putting in women. So this is, and not everyone gets sick right away. Not everybody has these health problems. But you have to be aware of these genetic basic things.
Yes.
Yeah,
I get it. So I ask, you've already shared so much information, but more on everything's personal too, but on a personal level right now, I like to ask people, what's your golden secret?
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a hard one.
I know. So what's your golden secret right now?
Well, for 2018, I have to say I've been doing a lot of yoga and meditation to just kind of,
Yes.
you know,
I love
recover.
that.
It's been huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been huge.
It's a journey that you've been on. So
Yeah.
I think, I mean, that makes so much sense. The yoga is so grounding and
Yes.
gets you out of the physical and into the
Right.
seat.
Right. Because you could be doing all of these things, but when you're walking around like,
Yeah.
you know, your brain is sending signals to all of your cells that everything is not okay.
Yes.
So if you're not, you have to bring in that spiritual component.
Yes. That's a great golden seed. That's one of my golden seeds.
I figured.
But everybody can find you on Instagram.
Yes.
You're sharing amazing videos
Thank
and
you.
information.
Yes,
And your website's going to be up soon.
Yes.
And thank you so much
Thank
for
you
coming today.
for having me.
So
I'm
grateful.
so glad.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.